Next, on the beat, it's all positive steps on the Oregon Trail. The Blazers are the surprise team of the West, and we have reasons why. Speaking of surprises, from Spain to Minnesota, Ricky has them rocking. Wolves exec David Kahn joins us to discuss. And things are rough in D.C., and the Wizards are bad too. The kind of play that can make any coach flip. The beat goes on.
Hey gang, welcome to The Beat, the show that looks at the stories behind the stories in the NBA from those who cover it at the highest level. I'm Vince Cellini, and let's check out the usual suspects with us again this week. TNT information maven David Aldridge is with us from Silver Spring, Maryland, and also joining us from the New York Daily News, their fine writer, a great scribe, Frankie Ice. Frank Isola is with us from New York. Gents, good to see you, and coming up a bit later, Lang Whitaker, the editor-at-large for Slam Magazine, will also be joining us. But let's get right to it, and we are going to start with a look at the best records in the Western Conference through Monday. OKC, okay, they're 8-2, a fashionable pick for everyone. But Portland, all the doom and gloom in the preseason, and Portland is now 6-2. Roster changing, they're beat up, they have retirements, illness, and look at where they stand. And DA, it can't all be your cousin, can it? I mean, there have to be some other components there. What's going on?
Always starts with cousin LaMarcus, though. You got to keep that in mind. He's the linchpin of the whole deal, and he's playing great. But Ray Felton is playing great for them too. I mean, he's a guy that really has stepped in. They moved Andre Miller so that they could get this guy some playing time. He's been terrific. But you know, I'm favorable to the family, so I'm going to stick with my cousin LaMarcus and the job he's done. Great play at power forward. Really has taken on the leadership role with that team. You know, they lose Brandon Roy. They think they're going to get him back, and he retires. And then they think they're getting Greg Oden back at some time this year, and now it looks like he's not going to be back either. So LaMarcus Aldridge has done a remarkable job, really taking that team on his shoulders.
Frank, when you look at this, how surprised are you at the Blazer performance, like I said, given all the distractions in preseason?
You know, I'm going to go back and look at my roots because hopefully I'm related to Nate McMillan because to me, he's the guy that really has everything going. You know, when you look at this team, it's so easy to feel sorry for yourselves with what happened with Oden and obviously Brandon Roy. But to have a terrific coach in Nate McMillan, LaMarcus Aldridge, you know what? This label that he's a soft player is now gone, and they've done a good job, you know, bringing in good players. Raymond Felton did a terrific job last season in New York. Go ask Amari Stoudemire how much he loves Raymond Felton. And I think, you know, Marcus Camby is a solid role player. Gerald Wallace. And don't forget about a guy like Kurt Thomas, the oldest player in the league. The Chicago Bulls really miss him. They loved having him around, presence not only in the locker room, but on the court as well. Kurt, even at 40, can still play a little bit.
Yeah, that roster is impressive when you really take a closer look at it. Frank, I'll go back to you, and then you, David. How important was it for Portland to come in flying under the radar without these expectations? Did that take some of the pressure off early in the season?
You know what, I think it did on some level, and I also think it's a team that has a bit of an edge to them. I think they want to prove to people that, you know, this isn't a lottery team. They're going to be a playoff team. And you know what? To be good in the NBA, you have to have at least one all-star, and they have it in LaMarcus Aldridge. And I think I give Nate McMillan a lot of credit because a lot of teams could use excuses. Well, you know, we're a new team. We didn't have a long training camp. You don't hear them using that excuse. They're going out and playing, and they're playing well, and they're making most of the talent that they have.
D.A.?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And keep this in mind. I mean, you know, Portland was going to always be a half-court team with Brandon Roy just because he couldn't really move up and down. Obviously, if you had Oden out there, you're going to be a half-court team. And they really struggled last year when those two guys were out of the lineup. And I give Nate McMillan, to Frank's point, a lot of credit. He said, hey, let's go, let's run. And they are being up-tempo this year. They're pushing the ball. They're trying to use the athletes that they have to create offense out of their defense. And a guy like Gerald Wallace, who they got midway through last season, is a godsend in that type of system. A guy who can defend and then get out on the wing and finish, handle the ball and pass. He's perfect for the way they're playing.
Yeah, so far so good in the Pacific Northwest. As we move on, let's get to Frank's wheelhouse now and the Knicks. So much hype. But, you know, that Charlotte loss last week, that was a red flag for me. You got a couple of guys on this team that take about 60% of their shots, and the coach is on a very tight leash. We don't know what's going to happen with him. But they do have two superstars. And when you have that, Frank, you always have a chance. And I know the Knicks do. What are your thoughts? You're right there.
No, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. You have to win with stars in this league, but the problem is the Knicks aren't winning with those two stars. If you go back to when they made the trade last season, the Knicks still have a losing record with Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire on the team. Right now, they're 18-22 with them. Now, I think they're going to get better, and I think when you're talking about a guy like Tyson Chandler solidifying that front line, the point guard situation is a little unstable right now. Everyone's going to assume that Baron Davis is going to come back healthy. I believe that Amari and Carmelo can play together, but the team is a little different now. And I think, David was in Washington. He saw them play. This isn't a traditional Mike D'Antoni team. The ball doesn't move the way it wants to. When you have a guy like Carmelo, a primary scorer, he wants the ball on the block. He wants to do his thing. So it's an adjustment for everyone involved, and I think it's been a huge adjustment for Amari. I keep saying it. You go back to last season, he was in the running for MVP from late October until about February. He ended the season as the second-best player on his own team.
D.A., it's not only strategy, but it's also a guy who's battling in New York questions about whether he's going to be back on the bench. How is Mike D'Antoni dealing with all of that while trying to stay competitive and try to make sure that you rein in a couple of superstars and sprinkle in the rest of your talent?
Well, look, he doesn't have much choice. That's all he's got right now, are those two superstars. I mean, they don't have – Tony Douglas has played okay, but, he's not Clyde Frazier. Let's not go nuts, you know what I mean?
No.
And their problems aren't at the offensive end. They're at the defensive end. They're a bad defensive team. And no, Tyson Chandler can be there, Wilt Chamberlain can be there, Bill Russell can be there. It's a bad defensive team. And when you can't stop anybody, you don't win any championships, and that's going to be their problem. And that's going to be the problem that Mike D'Antoni has going forward. He's adjusted his offense. I mean, there's no 7 seconds or less anymore in New York. And, Carmelo Anthony is a great scorer. He's a very talented player, but he's a ball stopper. And he just is. He has to have the ball in his hands to do something with it. And that is not Mike D'Antoni's system.
Yeah, lack of defense has been the cloud around this team to this point. We'll see if that can change during the course of the year. All right, now the only winless team in the league. And at this point, the Washington Wizards have a beleaguered head coach in Flip Saunders. And he had this quote after Sunday's loss dropped the Wiz to 0-8. The quote is this: "I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to see what I can do as a coach to get us better, because evidently right now I haven't done a good enough job. That's evident because we're not totally getting through to some guys. And some guys continue to play the way they want to play and not the way we need to play as a team." Well, D.A., again, as Frank said, you were in attendance to watch that Sunday game. Was it everything you hoped it would be to watch the Wizards in person?
I told somebody this. I have gone to, I think, 4 or 5 Wizards games in Washington, and I have yet to go into their locker room. I see no reason to go into their locker room. I'm there to cover the visiting team because the home team has given me no reason to go in their locker room at all. It's 12 guys, 12 Cavs, just like the old Red Sox team. There's no semblance of team. There's no semblance of doing anything to make anybody else any better. The ball moves. There's one pass, and somebody jacks up a shot or tries to create off the dribble. Nobody handles the ball well enough to do that, and nobody shoots the ball well enough to do that. And that would be great, except at the other end, they're even worse. They're a lousy defensive team, and they don't rebound. So other than that, everything's great.
Well, Frank, it seems like they're young and they're fragile, and if you put that kind of pressure on them late in a game, the word is that they will fold. And at 0-8, the good news for them is they have a long way to go before they get out to the worst start. But what are your early observations on this team?
Well, on Friday, being down there, watching them play against the Knicks, this was coming after they had been blown out, they had a players-only meeting, all of that nonsense. But to their credit, they did play hard in that game. They were up 16 in the first half. Late in the game, they took a lead. If they could have gotten a rebound after Carmelo Anthony missed the shot before he hit the go-ahead three-pointer, maybe they have a chance to win that. But when you look at that team, it's so young. They don't have any leadership on that team whatsoever. You have a young guy like John Wall. And here's the problem with a guy like John Wall, and it's the same thing with Tariq Evans, because they both played for 1 year under John Calipari. They keep getting compared to Derrick Rose when they're not in the same zip code as Derrick Rose. So they're putting a lot of responsibility on John Wall. He's not ready for it. And I'm going to be nice to the other guys. I'm going to say they're eccentric. Nick Young, JaVale McGee, Andre Blatch. It's a very young, immature team, and I think the Gilbert Arenas situation, going back to his knee surgery, going back to what happened in the locker room when he ended up getting suspended from the league, the organization has never recovered from that. It's really a sad and a bad situation because if you look at that market, That's a great place to play. It's a great city. You know what? It's the biggest failing of the Obama administration, not bringing a big free agent to Washington, because it's a great city.
Well, what do they say? When you have money, you're eccentric. If you don't have money, you're crazy. So for now, they're eccentric, but they're making Flip crazy. All right, still ahead on the beat. The dashing young Spaniard at point guard for the Wolves, translating his game quite well to the NBA. Wolves president of basketball operations, David Kahn, joins us to explain the Ricky Mania in a moment. Stay with us.